Good morning. Thanks to all of you for joining us here this morning for this really important overview. I want to give a thank you to Madam License Collector Mavis Thompson for really pulling us all together. And of course to Otis Williams, who's going to be our moderator here today. I see there are 130 or so folks on this call, so there's obviously a lot of interest and we understand why. The COVID-19 virus, of course, is causing financial difficulties for nearly every business across the entire St. Louis region. And it's been very challenging and continues to be very challenging to manage employees, keep your morale up, keep some level of productivity there, and to ensure that your company's culture stays intact. Of course, we all know about the difficulty with the health situation as more and more of our friends and neighbors and coworkers are infected with COVID-19. But today we're here to talk about the business aspect of this. The St. Louis Regional Chamber, in conjunction with the St. Louis Development Corporation and the Economic Development Partnership, and many other business development organizations have created resources that can help businesses navigate this really very difficult situation. Please visit the St. Louis Regional Chamber's website for a lot of good information. If you click on that, you will really, I think, be enlightened by all the information that is there. One of the resources that is being offered is a zero loan program for small businesses in the city of St. Louis and in St. Louis County. Businesses are eligible to apply for up to $5,000 for working capital. Now, hopefully $5,000 is enough to bridge between what the city and the county have put together and what SBA and other programs have put together for you. Any for-profit business in the city or the county that has sustained economic damage due to COVID-19 can apply. They have also created the Gateway Resilience Fund, and this fund makes grants to support employees, essential contractors, and owners of small business in the St. Louis region who are experiencing financial burden due to this disaster or another extreme situation. This fund, the Gateway Resilience Fund, will provide short-term monetary relief to employees and owners of independent bars, restaurants, and shops in the St. Louis area that have been affected by closures or partial closures in the case of restaurants with carryout only, and other circumstances that are brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, the St. Louis Community Foundation has assembled a coalition of local influencers and influential organizations to create the COVID-19 Regional Response Fund. And this fund will direct resources to regional nonprofits that are serving local communities that have been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus crisis and by the economic fallout. Many organizations representing charitable funders, the business community, the community organizations have formed to financially support this fund, the Regional Response Fund. They are in contact with additional potential partners and funders who will be throughout the pandemic. Now, the Small Business Administration is playing a very vital role in this response. They are offering low interest federal disaster loans for working capital and small businesses suffering substantial economic injury as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic. The needs of the community, our businesses, and our nonprofits will change throughout this crisis, and we will continue to work together to consider the needs of today, the needs a month from now, and the needs 6 months from now during the entire recovery period. The shutdown, the stay-at-home order within the region is of the highest priority. We are going to all continue to collaborate and coordinate with our regional, state, and federal partners There, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of information available on the St. Louis Regional Chamber's website. And you can also call the Business Resources Hotline, which is 615-1777. That's area code 314-615-1777. And so thank you for allowing me to welcome you here this morning and give just a really brief overview. And now I'd like to turn the microphone over to license collector Mavis Thompson.
Good morning, everyone. I too want to welcome you to our Small Business Resource and Assistance webinar. I want to thank our partners, the Mayor's Office, the St. Louis Development Corporation, the Small Business Empowerment Center, the Small Business Administration, ITSA, and the communications staff, as well as the License Collector's Office for making this event possible. The License Collector's Office is authorized by Missouri state statute as the sole authority to license businesses that operate in the city of St. Louis. For many years, the License Collector's Office has sponsored forums specifically related to hot topics for businesses. The topics have included tax preparation, certification for daycare operators, entrepreneurship for seniors and veterans, MBE, WBE, DBE certification, merchants and manufacturers, technology, innovation and venture capital, as well as medical marijuana. And so we're happy to bring this seminar along with our other partners to you today. And I was talking to the mayor earlier and she said, thank you for the idea, but I want to say simultaneously, it seems like myself and Otis Williams, director of the St. Louis Development Corporation, had this same idea for this kind of webinar. Our aim here today is to help facilitate any available resources for our small businesses in particular. Now, due to City Hall being closed to the public, to contact the License Collector's Office, please email us. Our email our office will reach out to you within a 24-hour period to assist you with your question. Also visit our website at stlouis.mo.gov/license-collector. And on that website, you can apply for a business license, you can renew a business license, you can pay your fees, or search for a licensed business. And so again, I welcome you as a license collector for the city of St. Louis, and I'll turn the program now over to our moderator, Otis Williams.
Thank you, Madam License Collector, and also to the mayor. Thank you all and to all the participants for joining. This is a day that what we wanted to do was to be able to bring the experts to this forum and allow them to provide you with an update on where they are. I believe at this point, as the mayor had indicated, there are a number of resources that have been identified. Just as an update on the 0% loan program, the loans have been provided to over 50 loan applicants thus far. We are working through that process, and we'll hopefully be able to get to more in today and through the weekend. So this is being done electronically, but there are some checks and balances that has to happen in that process. So we are moving ahead there. The Community Foundation is in fact a great partner, and so they have been providing a number of small loans to help the restaurant business for sure, and others in the small business area. We've been working very closely with the hospitality industry through the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so with Brian Hall and this team there, along with Rue Yarwitz, who and Alderwoman Ingracia actually has been a great partner, and working with members of that industry. So we continue to work to try and provide resources. But I think most of you are probably applying to the Small Business Administration for a loan. And so today we have on our panel Maureen Brinkley and Tom Dauber from the local SBA office, and also Kevin Wilson from the Small Business Development Center. I'm going to allow Maureen to begin by talking about what they're doing, where they are, what the status is of the program. Maureen?
Good morning. First of all, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Otis and Madam License Collector for including us in this very, very important but unfortunate crisis that we're all going through. My heart goes out to all the small businesses that are suffering through this. Tom Diber, whom you'll hear from later, is our lead lender relations specialist. And over the last week, he and I have both been working literally around the clock trying to get the assistance out that we need. I'm pleased to say that the SBA, we stepped forward because we know how important it is that the small businesses receive the help that they need during this crisis. We were able to come up with Treasury is kind of a three-pronged effort between the Small Business Administration, Treasury, and the White House to provide everything that we need to the businesses that are affected and get them the capital quickly. 2 weeks ago, meetings were held, and I'm very proud to say that we have the three programs that are most beneficial and right now are working out. We have the Paycheck Protection Program. The most important one that seems to be the one that's getting more traffic now than any. That's an incentive to so employers, business owners can keep people on the payroll. We have the relief, the SBA relief to help current borrowers with offering deferred payments. And then the advance, where we're able to provide $10,000 advance to businesses who are just right out the park suffering. We've made this as simple as we possibly can with an application that's online. A week ago, we didn't have this, but I'm very pleased to say if you go straight to www.sba.gov, a link pops up immediately that says apply here online. It's ready. Apply online. You can check the status and find out if you're eligible. There are 30 million small businesses in the country, but I'm going to be a little selfish here, as Otis and the mayor used to me saying, I'm mostly concerned about the ones here in St. Louis because you all are my babies. These are the ones that we want to get the help to you as quickly as possible. Kevin Wilson's on the line. Kevin and I worked together for years, and we tried to be proactive. 3 weeks ago, I had asked him and a couple other people in that and Urban Link, let's get together to find out what do we need to do to get these services out to our businesses as soon as possible. We weren't able to do that, but we've continued to stay working together online through each other. We're working closely with the banks. You've seen in the newspapers, you've heard on TV how we're overwhelmed, and that's true. I'm not going to argue that point. We are extremely overwhelmed. The banks are overwhelmed, but just within the last 2 days, we have seen some progress. We're trying to get this emergency capital in the hands of businesses. We know your pain, we feel your pain. The only thing what bugs me most about this virus is that I can't meet with each of you in person, which I'd love to do. But having said that, my arms are around you, my hand is reached out to you, and we're going to do everything today we can to give you the information that you need and continue to work with you daily in getting you the information. Thanks, Otis.
Well, thank you. And Tom, if you maybe can speak to some of the issues that have been identified by a number of businesses thus far in the process.
Yeah, as Maureen said, it's been challenging. A normal environment, SBA does about 60,000 7(a) loans per year, and we've done nearly half of 500,000 loans in the less than a week. So you can imagine the strains that's put onto our system. the challenges with the system. We've created another portal to allow lenders to get bigger, faster access to the SBA program. There's been a number of issues that have occurred just with the number of emails that SBA is sending out. We've had challenges with some of the internet browsers blocking those emails going out. So that's caused more issues as well. So much of it is, as Maureen said, has been trying to streamline the process as much as possible. And there are, as I said, over 500,000, I believe, loans at this point in time that have been made. So there are a number of loans being made and originated. It's just we're trying to address the issues with the remaining folks that have not been able to get access yet to our systems. That's been one of the challenges we've been working on.
So there are a couple of things that have come out in the press that maybe any one of our panelists may be able to address, and that is are we running out of funds, and is the cap being lowered? That is one of the questions that's been asked.
I'll take that one. No, we are not running out of funds. As a matter of fact, our administrator is working with the president to get additional money. Like Tom said, as of late yesterday, and this is the first time we've been able to say this publicly, 400,000 loans have already been made, over $1 billion. So at this point, we have not, $100 billion. So no, we have not run out of funding, not at all. Now, having said that, there are a lot of loans out there hanging out in the pipe that have not been approved. It is our desire, and because we are being proactive, that before we reach that point, this additional money will be approved. And I can't imagine why Congress will not pass that legislation.
Okay, great. So one other panel member here is Kevin Wilson with the Small Business Development Center, and I'll let Kevin explain what the center does and how they can be of help to local businesses.
Good morning, everybody. I am Kevin Wilson, and I'm part of America's SBDC Missouri. The SBDC is partially funded by the Small Business Administration, and the SBDC program is designed to deliver up-to-date counseling, training, and technical assistance in all aspects of small business management. And the SBDC services include, but are not limited to, assisting small businesses with the SBA disaster loan and recovery after this crisis is over. We work with all of our economic development partners in the region to bring a continuity of services to small business owners and helping them with all aspects of their business. So definitely reach out to us if you need assistance. Our main number is 314-405-8400. And you can go to our main website, which is www.missouriSBDC.org. Thank you, Otis.
Okay, great. And so I want those who need assistance to take advantage of Kevin's offer. He and his team are the ones that can assist those that may have questions and working through the process with the SBA. There are a couple of things that I wanted to point out to the listeners here is that hopefully you've seen the article written by Greg Edwards in the Business Journal. And Greg had the opportunity to speak with a number of bankers who are working in this process. And obviously they had some lessons learned. And so we'd like to be sure that it was yesterday's online business journal. Greg Edwards is the author. If you go to the STL Business Journal website, you can see his article. But essentially, some of the things there was obviously at this point, most everyone has applied. But if you haven't, you have to apply as quickly as possible. But don't assume the loan will be automatically forgiven if you're working through that process and you think you're seeking funds that may be forgiven. One of the big challenges I know that's been out there is completing the application fully. And so there's some frustration where some of the blocks are not complete and just need to be sure that it's done. And one of the things that the bankers are suggesting is that you seek guidance from whomever is your financial advisor, or if you don't, if you're working with a bank, work with that bank and get advice from that bank and getting things done. But I guess the big thing is to make sure you understand what you're signing up for and what your obligation is, and make sure that you don't misspend in this whole process. So those are the things that are some of the things actually that Greg has pointed out. But I offer that to you because it's a good thought piece and some good things that you should probably be aware of. So at this point, there are probably lots of questions out there, and so JP Johnson will read off some of the questions that have come on thus far.
Thanks, Otis. We'll start at the top of the Q&A. The first question is, I submitted my application for a $10,000 emergency grant right away. I have not heard a thing. I have an application number. Is there a way to check the status?
This is Tom Diber. I'll answer that question. The economic injury disaster loans were made available early in the process, and as we mentioned, the system was totally overloaded. So we went to a simpler process and online. Unfortunately, in the system upgrade, the ability to go back and check the actual status was lost. So there is no way to check that status. I understand that, and the original goal was to get those $10,000 advances out within 3 days. And I understand as of yesterday that those funds now are finally going to be sent out.
As a follow-up to that question, the $5,000 working capital that's working through the city, how can a business apply?
So there is a link online at the www.stlouismissouri.org. This is the city's website, /SLDC. Go to that page and you can see an application form for that loan. And if you have difficulty getting to that loan, you can also call the hotline, and the mayor provided the number at the very beginning. And I will endeavor to get that one before we get off this line here to repeat it, but I don't have it in front of me right at the moment. But there is a hotline that is available also on the website. You can call that number and speak to someone about that.
The next question is, I have applied for the Paycheck Protection Program and awaiting our loan officer to communicate. However, my question is, will the Paycheck Protection Program be funded via direct deposit if we're using the banks that funded our SBA loans, or will we be waiting for a check?
The PPP loans, the Payroll Protection Program loans, are made by the individual lender. So that would be up to each lender to disperse that. That would not be coming from the SBA. That would be made directly, funds directly by the individual lender.
And to add on to that, please just stay in touch with your lender on those.
Next question. I'm told that if you owe back taxes on your business, that you are not eligible for the loan. Is this true?
Under the general SBA program, back taxes are available if you've got a written, well, there's a payroll that's been withheld from employees is not available for SBA loans. Those are escrow, those are monies held in trust, deducted from the employee's paycheck. So those are not eligible for SBA assistance. On the PPP loans, if you want debt forgiveness, that is for the payroll cost 8 weeks after you've gotten the fund. So if you're looking for help with past payroll taxes, what you may want to do is apply for economic injury disaster loan, and you can apply for those loans at sba.gov/disaster.
And there's a list on our website that specifically states what the PP loans money can be used for.
Next question. Will there be any considerations related to lowering property taxes on commercial real estate bills at the end of this year?
Good morning. I see, maybe I'm the one to answer that question. You will still owe your personal property tax and your real estate tax at the end of this year. The collector of revenue is always willing to work with you on those payments, but you still will owe your personal property and your real estate taxes.
Right. Next question. The Paycheck Protection Program, they indicate 25% of the loan can be used for non-payroll expenses. Is that 25% of the total loan granted or 25% of funds spent on payroll after the 8 weeks start?
That would be 25% of your loan amount. So 75% of the PPP loan must be used for payroll. That was the main purpose of the program, was to put people back to work.
Excellent. Next question. Can a company comprised of independent contractors qualify for loan forgiveness under the SBA disaster assistance loan?
That's a question that we're still waiting for guidance on how independent contractors will apply, but independent contractors are eligible for the PPP loan. Businesses that engage independent contractors cannot claim those independent contractors as their employees. But independent contractors, each individually, are basically self-employed individuals, so they are eligible for their own application for a PPP loan.
That's great. Next question. I keep hearing references for Paycheck Protection Program going back to January 31st. Are past expenses included in what is forgivable, or only expenses incurred after the loan is approved?
There's two measurements for the payroll protection plan. One is to determine how much you're eligible for. You would look at your payroll over the last year and come up with an average monthly payroll cost, and that could include not only the compensation, the salaries, but also the benefits, health insurance, retirement plan payments for those employees. So you add up, you look at the payroll cost for the last year, divide by 12 months, and that's your average monthly payroll. You multiply that by 2.5 times. That is the maximum amount that you're eligible for under the payroll plan. So then the second step then is if those loan funds are used to bring people back to work, then the loan can be forgiven up to the full amount of the loan. So the measurement of the forgiveness then is measuring your payroll beginning when you get the loan proceeds.
And let me add that the borrower application, as I said earlier, is very simple, and it sets out everything Tom just said as far as completing that spreadsheet for over the last 12 months and how you multiply the 2.5 to come up with that number. So take some time to just look at the borrower application. I will tell you that the U.S. Treasury website, who is really the head of this program other than SBA, they have an excellent, they've done it, I have to say, even better job than we have of explaining this program on their website. So I encourage you to go to U.S. Treasury's website under the Payroll Protection Program, and you can actually see the borrower application there to kind of get a look at it prior to starting it.
All right, our next question. Will businesses that apply through the SBA for the grant, I'm assuming the myriad of grants, hear from the government at some point? We have no idea currently if our loan is in the works or not. What is the best way to find this out?
Yeah, there's two programs. One is the PPP program, and that's made directly with the lender. So communication on the status of that would work with your lender on that. If you're applying to the SBA directly for the economic injury disaster loans, that status is unfortunately not able to check online. But the communication sent to us yesterday was that there will be communication coming out for to each of those who have applied. And if you haven't applied yet, you can still go in and apply online for those loans.
All right, our next question. If you're a sole proprietor with only yourself as an employee, can you receive PPP help?
Yes, you can. We are still waiting for guidance as far as how that will be treated, because it's a unique situation. When you have a Schedule C and you draw out take owner draws, there's obviously more discretion as far as how much money you take out and how that will be treated. So We expect that guidance to be available specifically on how that's handled, but I'd encourage you to start your application with your lender and get that going, and then they'll be able to help you on figuring out how much sole proprietors are eligible to qualify for.
Our next question, is the $10,000 SBA economic injury disaster loan forgivable? Advance deducted from any amount you may qualify for under the PPP.
The short answer on the economic injury disaster loan is if you apply, you have to fill out an application for the economic injury disaster loan. And then at the end of the application, it will ask you, do you want to advance? If you select yes, then the advance will be forthcoming. And if you are declined for the economic injury disaster loan, you do get to keep the advance, and that would be forgiven.
All right, our next question. I think you may have answered this already, Thomas, but we owe back payroll taxes to the IRS. How does that affect a possible PPP or EIDL loan?
Yeah, with the IRS, what you want to have is have negotiate a written payment plan. If you have a written payment plan for them on the back taxes, then you would be eligible for an SBA loan, but you have to work out a payment plan with the IRS.
All right, our next question. What happens if we are still required to be closed by the city during the 8 weeks after we are approved for PPP and thus have little or no payroll expenses during that time? Can the 8 weeks be extended, or can we choose the 8-week start date?
That is a very good question, and that's something that's been being discussed and looking for additional maybe guidance or direction on that. But as the current law is written, I don't know if that was anticipated with folks not being able to put employees back to work. But as it's written right now, the lender must disperse the loan proceeds within 10 calendar days of getting approval from the SBA. And then once those funds are dispersed, because the use of the plan was to put people back to work, that you have 8 weeks after you start receiving the first disbursement to qualify for forgiveness. I mean, you can still take out the loan, but if you don't bring the people back to work, then that portion of the loan would not be forgiven.
And let's keep in mind, as Tom stated, everything that we're telling you is based on the Code of Federal Regulations that was actually signed and written March the 30th or the 31st. So as we all know, everything is changing every day nationwide as far as this virus is concerned. Our goal in SBA is to get people back to work as soon as possible, but we don't want to do that, as the mayor stated, if there are still health issues involved. So we hear you, the president hears you, Treasury understands. So we will work through that as the occasion arises.
Great. Our next question. Can I apply for both PPP and EIDL funding?
Yes, you can. The one requirement is that you cannot use those proceeds for the same expenses. So since the PPP is primarily for payroll and is forgiven based primarily on your payroll, what you may want to do is use the PPP for your payroll costs and then apply for the economic injury disaster loan and use that to pay for your other operating expenses.
Our next question. Will the PPP loan convert automatically if the entirety of the funds cannot be used for payroll and other eligible expenses? It was my understanding that it would convert to a 4% loan with a 10-year term.
No, that is incorrect. That was part of the misinformation that was released prior to SBA's official guidance coming out. The Congress passed the rule for creating the funds and allowed for the loans to be as long as 10 years and for lenders to charge as, or SBA to allow for loans to be up to 4%. But it was determined by Treasury that, and working with the SBA, that the loan rate would only be 1% instead of 4%, and that the loans would have to be repaid within 2 years, because the program is primarily to put people back to work. And if you're incurring payroll costs, then the amount of the loan would be forgiven. So the actual structure is that it's a 2-year note at 1%. The first 6 months, there's no payments. The balance would be, the interest would accrue at 1%. for the first 6 months. So there's no payments on the PPP loans for 6 months. And then if the portion that's not forgiven would have to be repaid over the following 18 months.
All right, our next question. Will partners in a partnership who are not and or cannot be employees eligible for any portion of the PPP to be paid for payroll expenses?
That is a very good question, and that's something that is very similar to the owner's draw question, as we don't have guidance on that yet. That's still being negotiated with SBA and Treasury as far as how that will be handled. The guidance, the interim rule says that sole proprietors and owners and self-employed are eligible. We're just trying to determine how they're going to determine their payroll cost for the calculation of how much loan they can get. So the answer is yes, but we're hoping to get guidance on that very soon.
All right, our next question. Short-term rental owner, AKA Airbnb, VRBO, ETC, and long-term rental owners, AKA landlords, investors, have been hit hard. Many STRs have seen as much as 100% cancellation of current and future bookings. Increasing numbers of tenants are unable or unwilling to pay rent. 2 questions. What resources are available for these property owners? And the second portion of the question, I believe, was cut off. So we'll just answer the first question. What resources are available for these property owners?
I'll address from the SBA standpoint. The payroll protection program is for payroll expenses, so that wouldn't be applicable for that, but they would be eligible for an economic injury disaster loan.
And I think you may have answered this time, but some employees have already applied for unemployment funds. How does this affect PPP?
That's a very good question. Obviously the employees wouldn't be on the payroll and collecting unemployment at the same period of time. So it's fine that they filed unemployment through this interim period. Once the employer has the PPP loan funds, then they're incentivized to bring the folks back to work and get them back on the payroll to get the debt forgiveness. So it's fine that they are on the payroll, and then the employer would hopefully rehire them and bring them back. And as they moved off unemployment, then the business would be paying their payroll and basically get their loan forgiven for that first 8-week period.
All right, our next question. If a firm that supports independent contractors applies for support, which program or how many programs could that firm apply for? And this is assuming that the firm will be able to shift its current focus to a separate focus.
Yeah, so for a firm that employs independent contractors, you're only eligible under the PPP program for your payroll costs. So an independent contractor is not an employee for payroll cost. They may want to look at if they have other payroll, and some of it is independent contractors, they could apply for the PPP for the portion of the folks as payroll. If they have no employees, then they may want to look at the economic injury disaster fund. And as we mentioned earlier, independent contractors, each individually are self-employed, so they would be eligible for a PPP loan for those individuals.
Excellent. Our next question. I bank with Wells Fargo. They currently do not have a way to apply for the PPP. They have sent me an email that basically says they will not get back to me anytime soon due to the size of the queue or the request. Can I apply with other lenders?
The short answer is yes. You can apply to any lender that you want, and that's indication of if Wells Fargo, a bank of their size, is overwhelmed. It kind of gives you an idea for the demand. But yeah, the short answer is you can apply at any lender. But I will caveat that some lenders are only doing loans for their own customers. So basically, but you can apply and look for another lender.
And that was one of the items that, as Otis said, was mentioned in Greg Edwards' article. As a matter of fact, we encourage you to apply to other lenders. Try the smaller lenders. A lot of the small community banks are really anxious to take applications for this. So this is an opportunity to get the small community banks more involved. But yes, we definitely encourage you to try other lenders.
All right. Does the city or the state have plans to support small businesses beyond these federal programs? Otis, this may be one for you as well.
Yes, So before I answer that question, let me give this hotline number is 314-615-1777. And there are two ways to get to that. One, as I mentioned, through the city's website, which is www.stlouis-mo.gov. It's /government/departments/health, and then /communicable disease COVID-19 economic recovery. So that's a long one, but there is a shorter one that we tell people, and that is use BizHelp, BIZHELP at stlpartnership.com, and that will get you there as well. Again, BIZHELP at stlpartnership.com. But there, to answer the question about other loans, we're continuing to seek assistance from other agencies and other organizations. And so the $5,000 zero interest loan program was initially funded through our own resources to try and give some immediate help. Since that time, we have had the assistance of 10 banks who have come to the table to provide us with additional funding. But also we are talking to the Economic Development Administration and potentially through community development block grant funds to be able to come up with another loan program. We do currently have loan facilities for a normal loan, but we're trying to quickly create a separate loan program, and that will, if once we get that set up and approved by our board, we will be announcing that as well. So hopefully that will come out soon.
All right, fantastic. All right, this may be something you've already addressed, Thomas, but can one define put people back to work to be forgiven? Most services have been put on hold. How do local mandates affect this rule?
Yeah, I do think we addressed that, and Maureen addressed that as well. As I would not be surprised if there are additional changes and clarifications, but as the rule is written right now, it's measured by payroll costs, money that's spent to bring people back to work for the 8-week period after the loan proceeds are received.
Right. Can a real estate holding company without payroll expenses receive any SBA forgivable assistance if the owners of that company also receive assistance with a different small business they own?
Without payroll, the payroll PPP loan is for payroll, but they could apply for the economic injury disaster loan.
Right, a different variation of a question you've answered. Should the PPP monies be paid to employees for not working, i.e. our retail business is closed, but I'm happy to pay my employees this money to help them survive until we can reopen? Is this okay?
I don't know of anything that would prevent that. I mean, obviously the goal is to bring people back to work, but it's measured by the payroll cost for the business for the 8-week period after the loan is made.
All right. Is the 1% interest still applicable to the forgiven portion of the PPP?
The interest would accrue during the 6-month period after the loan is made when there's no payments due, but that interest could be forgiven if the payroll costs are sufficient to cover the amount of the loan plus the interest.
Excellent. All right. This is a question for the mayor. The city assessor opted to reclassify some short-term rentals from residential to commercial. This effectively tripled taxes and doubled escrows on most affected properties. This is not the only economic injury from this policy. The city is the only jurisdiction in Missouri following this policy. Can the mayor direct the assessor to roll back the reclassification on the affected properties?
Thank you for that question. So it's my understanding that the assessor took a two-pronged approach to this. One, if you have an Airbnb that in a property that you live in, then of course you're not subject to having that house, let's say, assessed as a commercial property. On the other hand, if you have a property that is strictly for commercial use, you don't live there, and you rent it out on Airbnb, whether it be a house or a condo, apartment, whatever, then that is a commercial property very similar to a hotel. And so that's the reason, as I understand it, that the assessor has classified those properties as commercial, similar to a hotel. And so I don't I believe that they did that in connection with the State Tax Commission. And so I believe that there are other jurisdictions that also are following that. Now, if you consider there's certainly a lot of, there are probably a lot more Airbnbs in St. Louis than there are in other counties, or the 114 counties around the state.
Excellent. Thanks, Mayor. Next question. So someone wants to know which loan should they apply for first? I'm assuming disaster and PPP.
Yeah, as far as the PPP and the IDL, you can apply for both of those loans. It's really up to your individual needs. As I mentioned earlier, the biggest thing to watch for is make sure that you are not using the proceeds for the same purpose. So you want to use those two loan programs. If you apply for both, you can apply for both, just use them for different uses.
And let me go back to what Otis said earlier. Don't overextend yourself. These are not grants, they are loans. Now, sure, true enough, we are forgiving, part of them are going to be forgiven, but don't overextend yourself as well. Just keep that in mind, please.
All right. Has a date been given for the release of EIDL funds?
I do not have an official date of when they will be released, but I did see communication yesterday that I would expect them very soon.
All right. I think you've answered this, but does 100% of employees have to come back for PPP to be forgiven? Some employees will be making more with the federal payment of $600 and may decline to return. And I'm assuming that 600 means the unemployment assistance per week that the federal government just passed in the CARES Act.
Yeah, there's a little bit of conflict in the way the rule is written, and looking for further clarification, because it does mention looking at headcount and payroll cost. So there will be more guidance given on how the payroll forgiveness is determined, I'm assuming, but the current guidance in the rule is basically just measuring payroll costs. So if you have fewer employees, you could still get debt forgiveness. It's going to be based upon, at least the current guidance is based upon the total amount of payroll costs you spend the 8 weeks after getting the loan.
All right. Which loan or grant can a nonprofit 501c3 apply for?
They are eligible for both PPP and the economic injury disaster loan. So they non-charitable 501c can apply for both.
And this is one instance that faith-based organizations are also eligible.
All right. People that have been directed to stay home due to showing signs of illness or due to school closures, do we direct those employees this money now to help them survive until we can reopen? Is this okay? Again, I'm assuming they're talking about PPP.
Yeah, I think the goal is to bring people back to work. I guess it's up to the employer to decide how they want to spend those funds. The lenders will actually be responsible for monitoring and tracking, and the employer will provide a payroll report to the lender showing that the payroll was dispersed. And my understanding is that's based upon how much payroll you spend. Obviously, the goal is bringing people back, but obviously in this environment, it's difficult if the business is not allowed to open until the virus is moved along.
All right. A business owner wants to know whether or not they should be concerned about their request for EIDL being lost or having to reapply based on the length of time they've had to wait for a response.
I would say generally not. When the loan was submitted, if you got an SBA confirmation that the application was accepted, then it's not unusual. And to my knowledge, it's been taking longer, obviously, than what we desire to get the money out. But I did see movement yesterday, so I would expect that there will be funds coming out very soon.
All right, we have a bit of a technical question here. We file our taxes as an S Corp, and we have salary employees and salary partners. Since we are an S Corp, wouldn't all salaries, including the partners' salaries, be eligible for PPP forgiveness?
I believe so, but we're still waiting for guidance on how individual owners like that how their payroll would be calculated.
All right, this is another question for the mayor. Since we have no idea how long social distancing is going to last, is there a system to be put in place to make sure that everyone will be able to vote for the general election?
That's a good question. I assume you're referring to the general election in November. We'll have a lot more data and a lot more science between now and November to be able to more specifically answer that question. Prior to November, of course, we have the August primary in the state of Missouri, at least. And so that's the first major election that's coming up. And then actually, if you're in the city of St. Louis, there are 2 ward elections that are currently scheduled for May the 19th, which are likely to be deferred a bit, but that's still up in the air. We're really trying to see how the numbers look, when the COVID cases peak, when more tests become available. And all of that is changing very, very rapidly. We're just about 2 weeks and 5 days right now into the stay-at-home order in the city of St. Louis. So every day and every week we get more information.
Another one for the mayor. Has there been any discussion by the city to extend the stay-at-home order preventing businesses from opening past the current state order deadline of April 24th, 2020?
There has been, and the St. Louis Metropolitan Pandemic Task Force that's a subject that we're going to take up next week. I think if you asked any of the leaders of the hospitals right now, they would say that it is likely that in the city of St. Louis, the order expires on the 22nd of April and the governor's expires on the 24th. I think most people think it's likely that it will be extended by at least a few weeks. That's not an announcement. I'm just trying to tell you the way it's being thought about right now. And we'll know more next week. By this time next week, I would expect we'll know considerably more.
I believe you're the best person to answer this, Otis. We are ready to start a large development project in the city. The investors who were ready to invest over $2 million in the first quarter cannot invest now because of this pandemic. What are your suggestions?
Well, we're continuing to work with developers who are getting everything in line. And so there are situations where, the developments will go on hold. And so that was the case. And the investors are able to hold for a while, then when the pandemic is over, we'll be ready to go at the other end. All of this is dependent upon the risk tolerance of both the investor and the banks that they're working with, but we are continuing all of the processes to move them towards closure. So if there are board meetings that are required, or documents to be signed, or zoning to be changed, all of those processes are continuing. And so we're continuing business, although we're doing it remotely, we're continuing business. So I think in almost every case we've talked to developers, we know where they are in most cases in this stage. And so if there's something, if you have a specific question, feel free to call me directly, and we can talk about where we are and what we can do to get it done.
Great. Our next question. There's a clause in the PPP application limiting employees making over $100,000 from assistance, and that's annually. If you're the only employee as a sole proprietor and making over this amount, are you disqualified?
We're still waiting for guidance on self-employed, but my understanding is that it'd be eligible up to the $100,000, but that's how it's applied to other individuals. But there should be guidance hopefully coming out very shortly on how to treat the self-employed.
We got another technical question. If a business applies for both the PPP and EIDL loans, will the EIDL loan amount be subtracted from the amount of the PPP loan?
There is, if you get a forgivable advance, it has to be backed off because you can't get that above that amount, but you are eligible to apply for both. But if you have a forgivable advance, that would reduce the amount that you would qualify for under the PPP.
All right, someone wants to know, how do you answer, do you want an advance question on the EIDL application?
Basically, after if you've already submitted an EIDL loan before the new system, you can go back in and go to the SBA.gov and you can click on the website and apply for an advance. If you're going in now to apply for the advance, you have to complete the application for the EIDL loan first, and then after you get a successful notification that your application has been submitted, then there will be a banner come up and ask you, do you want an advance or not? You just select yes or no.
And a follow-up to that, is the EIDL advance $1,000 per employee?
I have heard that I have not seen any official guidance on that yet, but I think because of the demand, it's possible that the amount may be carved back, and I'm thinking that might be part of the reason why it's taken so long to get the advanced dollars out. So that's something that should be hopefully available and announced very shortly.
All right. Can sole proprietors with pass-through filings, LLC, S Corp, having no income in 2019, no unemployment contributions in 2019, file for unemployment when there is no work available right now due to COVID impact?
I don't understand that question. Do you, Tom?
Yeah, I don't know if the PPP loan would be based upon payroll. So there's no payroll, you would not be able to apply for a PPP loan. The EIDL loan would be based upon your income prior to the disaster. So if you had no income prior to the disaster, you'd have no cash flow. And because it is a loan, they would have to measure, would you be able to repay that? But it sounds like maybe it's more of an unemployment question.
Yeah, they would like to know if they've made no contributions to unemployment as sole proprietors with pass-throughs, can they file for unemployment?
That's not for us. So.
I think that may be a question that we can ask of our folks at DOL, and we'll take that question and post it online when we get the answer.
Now we have a couple, thanks Otis. We have a couple questions where folks want some clarity. Thomas, I think you've answered this a couple times. Which loan, EIDL, PPP, do you apply for first, or can you apply for those loans simultaneously? And what do you advise to do?
Yeah, that you can apply for both loans. And if you need the assistance, I would encourage you to apply for both. In general, remember the PPP loan is for paycheck protection. So you have to have employees to qualify to get a PPP loan. So if you have employees, you can apply for the PPP, and for the economic disaster loan, you can apply for that, whether or not you've got employees. So I would encourage you to look into both and apply for both.
All right, another question where someone wants some clarity. Maybe you can answer this one again, Thomas. If a small business has delinquent payroll, tax, debt owed to IRS, will we still qualify for the two loans if you are not currently in a payment plan? If you are in the process of seeking a payment agreement that has not been finalized, are you eligible?
Yeah, I don't know the exact question on that. That's I know under the general SBA program, it has to be a written plan, but there may be some leniency on that. There are customer help numbers on our website, and that might be something that you would contact them directly to see if that's a requirement.
Great, and I think we have a question from the chat box, and this is for the mayor. Will the collector of revenue hold real estate tax sales during this period? If not, how long do you see sales being delayed?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So the collector of revenue will hold tax sales probably this summer. But there was one scheduled, I think, for May 15th, which is likely to have been delayed, but they will try to continue to hold tax sales as soon as we're off the stay-at-home order and as soon as the courthouse opens.
Excellent. We have a question concerning whether or not there will be a transcript of this webinar. I believe this is live streaming to YouTube, and that's where it will stay once we are done. I believe one of our ITSA members can answer that question.
I believe that is the case. So is Tony, are you on?
Yeah, the closed captioning is being recorded, and also the live stream will be available at youtube.com/City of St. Louis Mo. That's the city's YouTube channel.
Thanks, Tony.
We will put out the information about the YouTube availability in our daily bulletin, the bulletins that are going out from SLDC. So we will capture that information and make sure those that are that receive it will get that information and you can share it.
Thanks, Otis. And that was the last of our questions.
Well, I want to thank everyone for participating in this webinar. I think we were oversubscribed based on the number of calls that we could accept callers to be able to sign in, and so we will definitely host another webinar in the future, probably sometimes next week, and we will post this on YouTube. So I want everyone to know that our goal is to make sure that people get information that they need. And as our panelists have indicated over and over, this is an evolving event, and every day information continues to come to us and it changes. Every day we may find that we have resources that we can provide, and so we will endeavor to make sure people are aware of that. And so,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Marie.
You and the mayor know I like to always try to end on a positive note as much as I can. I want to add that, I've worked at SBA, I won't say how many years, you both already know. I've worked on many, many disasters all over the country, from tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes. This is the first disaster that I've been involved in, or any of us have been, that this is a disaster that we cannot see. So because we cannot see it, it's hard to gauge. It's hard to even still understand and imagine the severity of it. But I find it no coincidence that we are doing this webinar today on Good Friday. And I remember a sermon that I heard years ago that said, after Friday comes Sunday. So let's all use this day to think of Good Friday, that there is a Sunday coming, and this is all going to be better. It's going to be better. It's going to be worked out. But for me, and I hope for those who are listening, we will keep our faith and keep in mind that speaking on behalf of SBA and on behalf of Maureen Brinkley, we're here. We're working day and night. This never leaves my mind. I'm working Tom Diver to death, as you can tell. I think you have to admit that he's memorized the Code of Federal. He's memorized the law. So we're here continuously working to see that this gets done, and to get the St. Louis and St. Louis County small businesses back up working, get people back to work, and get the city back to looking the way it looks. So thank you very much.
Well, I want to
Maureen, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to echo that and just say thank you to all of our panelists and to all of the participants on the call. This is a tough time, as Maureen has indicated, and I think we're all aware. And so we will endeavor to keep everyone informed. If you have questions, feel free to call our hotline and make sure that we get your questions. The number is, again, 314-615-1777. or you can call SLDC's direct number, which is 314-657-3700, and or go on the web and communicate with us through our web location there as well. So thank you all very much.
I
We
just
will.
wanted to chime in as well, Otis.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Mavis, and I echo everything that Maureen had said as well. We thank all of you, our hearts, our prayers, our hard work, our websites, our emails, they all go out to you so that we can keep you informed of all of the necessary programs to get you back in business and back into the economic engine of the city. I do want to remind everyone that the email for the license collector's office, because you will need to be licensed or have a copy of your license to apply for the majority of these loans and grants. The email is lco@stlouis-mo.gov, and our website is stlouis-mo.gov/license-collector. And so again, thank you so very much, and please stay safe and sanitized.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone. Appreciate it.